The red lights flashed across the control room at Earth Space Command. Commander Jiho Kim stood at the main screen, watching numbers that made his blood run cold. 17 star systems had gone dark in the past month. No signals, no survivors, just empty space where billions of people used to live. "Sir, we have another message coming in," said Lieutenant Hana Yu from her station. Her voice shook as she spoke. "It's from the Galactic Council." Jiho nodded. "Put it on the main screen." The hologram that appeared showed a creature unlike anything most humans had ever seen. It had blue skin and 4 arms with eyes that held terror beyond words. When it spoke, the universal translator made its voice sound calm, but Jiho could see the panic in its movements. "This is Council Leader Vex of the Alteran Republic. We send this message to any who can hear it. The ancient enemy has awakened. The Devourers have returned from the galactic core. Our fleets are broken. Our worlds are consumed. We retreat to the rim of the galaxy and ask any who receive this message to do the same. Do not try to fight them. Run. Hide. Pray they lose interest." The message ended. The control room fell silent except for the hum of computers and the quiet breathing of 50 humans who had just learned that their galaxy was ending. Dr. Mina Park stepped forward from where she had been studying the alien signals. She was young for a scientist of her rank, but her mind was sharp enough to decode languages that had never touched human ears. "Commander, I've been tracking these signals for weeks. The pattern is always the same. A system sends out a distress call, then nothing. How long do we have?" Jiho asked. Mina looked at her tablet, running calculations in her head. "At their current speed, the Devourers will reach the outer colonies in 6 months, Earth in 18 months. Captain Hyun Lee, who had been quiet until now, spoke up from his position near the tactical display. "What are these Devourers exactly?" Mina pulled up her research on the main screen. Ancient texts appeared, translated from dozens of alien languages. "From what I can gather, they're as old as the galaxy itself, maybe older. They sleep for millions of years, then wake up hungry. They don't just kill civilizations. They consume them, everything. The planets, the stars, the very space around them." "How big are we talking?" Hyun asked. "The largest one detected was the size of Earth's moon. But they travel in groups, hundreds of them." General Boram Choi entered the room at that moment. She was a small woman, but when she spoke, everyone listened. She had fought in the Titan Wars, the Europa Rebellion, and a dozen smaller conflicts. War was something she understood better than most. "I've been listening from the hallway," she said. "This Galactic Council wants us to run and hide like everyone else." "That seems like the smart choice," said Dr. Park. "Every advanced civilization in the galaxy is retreating. Species that have existed for millions of years are fleeing in terror." General Choi smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Dr. Park, how long have humans been in space?" "About 400 years. And how long have these other species been around?" "Some of them, 10 million years, 20 million. The crystalline collective claims to be 40 million years old. And in all that time, with all their wisdom and technology, what's their solution to this problem?" Dr. Park looked confused. "Run away and hope for the best." "Exactly." General Choi walked to the tactical display and began pulling up information about Earth's military forces. "Commander Kim, I want you to call an emergency meeting of the War Council. Dr. Park, I need everything you have on these Devourers. Captain Lee, prep your ship. We're going to need our best pilots for what comes next." "General," Jiho said carefully, "are you suggesting we fight these things alone?" "I'm not suggesting anything, Commander. I'm telling you that's exactly what we're going to do. Dr. Park stepped forward. General, with respect, you didn't see the fear in that alien's eyes. These creatures have destroyed civilizations that make us look like children playing with sticks. Dr. Park, let me ask you something. When you were a child, were you ever afraid of the dark? Yes, of course. What lived in that darkness? Nothing. It was just my imagination. But you were still afraid. Yes. General Choi nodded. These aliens have lived in peace for millions of years. They've forgotten what it means to fight for survival. They see monsters in the dark and their first instinct is to run. But humans? We've been the monsters in the dark for our entire history. She pulled up Earth's military records. Wars, conflicts, battles that stretched back to the beginning of human civilization. While these aliens were building art galleries and writing poetry, we were perfecting the art of killing each other. We've had more wars in the past 1,000 years than most species have had in their entire existence. Captain Lee looked at the numbers on the screen. General, our entire fleet is maybe 300 ships. According to these reports, the Devourers destroyed fleets of thousands. Size isn't everything, Captain. It's about how you use what you have. General Choi brought up tactical data from the Titan Wars. When we fought the rebels on Titan, they outnumbered us 10-1. They had better weapons, better ships, better everything. But they lost. Do you know why? Because we fought dirty, Hyun said quietly. Because we fought to win. They fought to minimize casualties and preserve their infrastructure. We fought to end the war as quickly as possible, no matter the cost. She turned to face the room. These Devourers have never faced a species like us. They've consumed civilizations that value honor, art, peace, and preservation of life. They've never tried to eat something that bites back. Dr. Park was reviewing her data again. The reports say the Devourers use fear as a weapon. They broadcast images of destruction to break enemy morale before they attack. Perfect, said General Choi. Let them try to scare a species that tells ghost stories for entertainment and makes movies about zombies for fun. Commander Kim realized where this was going. You want to hunt them? I want to exterminate them, General Choi corrected. There's a difference. Hunting implies they have a chance to escape. The room fell silent again. Outside the windows, Earth hung in space, blue and peaceful. Soon, the most aggressive species in the galaxy would launch ships into the darkness to face an ancient horror that had consumed countless worlds. But for the first time since the crisis began, the humans in that room were smiling. The archives deep beneath Luna Base held secrets that most humans preferred to forget. Dr. Mina Park walked through the cold hallways, followed by General Boram Choi and historian Yeji Nam. They were here to understand why humanity was different from every other species in the galaxy. The data is disturbing, Yeji said as she unlocked a sealed vault. I've spent the last week comparing human history to the records we have of other galactic civilizations. The differences are shocking. Inside the vault, holographic displays showed the evolution of warfare across the galaxy. Yeji activated the first display, which showed the peaceful Alteran Republic. The Alterans have existed for 12 million years, Yeji explained. In all that time, they've had exactly 37 wars. Most of those lasted less than a year and had strict rules about civilian casualties and cultural preservation. She switched to another display. The Crystalline Collective is even more peaceful. 40 million years of existence, and they've never had what we would call a real war. Their conflicts are more like debates with very mild violence. Dr. Park studied the numbers. What about the younger species? Same pattern everywhere. The Zephyrians, the Void Walkers, the Metal Singers, they all developed the same way. A few thousand years of minor conflicts, then millions of years of peace and art and philosophy. General Choi crossed her arms. Show her our numbers. Yeji's expression grew dark as she pulled up human history. The display lit up with red marks, representing conflicts. There were so many that they blurred together into solid blocks of color. Humans have existed as a spacefaring civilization for 400 years, Yeji said quietly. In that time, we've had over 200 major wars. The Titan Wars alone killed more people than most species lose in their entire history. But that's just our space age, General Choi added. Show her the full timeline. The display expanded to show all of human history. The red marks multiplied until they covered almost every year of human existence. From the time humans developed agriculture until now, we estimate over 14,000 significant conflicts. Wars, rebellions, genocides, crusades, revolutions. We've never stopped fighting. Dr. Park stared at the display in horror. We're monsters. No, said General Choi firmly. We're survivors. Every other species in the galaxy had it easy. They developed on worlds where cooperation was rewarded and violence was unnecessary. Earth was different. Yeji brought up geological data from Earth's history. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, plague, famine. Earth tried to kill us every few thousand years. The only humans who survived were the ones who could fight for resources and adapt quickly to changing conditions. Natural selection, Dr. Park whispered, but for warfare. Exactly. While other species evolved to cooperate and share, we evolved to compete and conquer. Our entire biology is designed for violence. General Choi pointed to anatomical comparisons on the screen. Look at our muscles, our reflexes, our brain chemistry. We're built to hunt and kill. Yeji pulled up anthropological studies. Even our culture reflects this. Every human society has warrior stories, battle songs, and honored military traditions. We celebrate violence in ways that would horrify other species. Our children play war games, Dr. Park realized. Our entertainment is full of conflict and fighting. We think of military leaders as heroes. And that's just the beginning, said Engineer Kang Soo as he joined them in the vault. He was carrying classified files marked with security codes that made Dr. Park's clearance look basic. Want to see what really makes us different? Our weapons. Kang activated a new display showing human military technology. Every other species develops weapons as a last resort. They make them just powerful enough to end conflicts quickly with minimal damage. They have rules about what weapons are too cruel to use. The display showed alien weapons. Energy beams that disabled rather than killed, shields that protected rather than destroyed, ships designed to capture rather than annihilate. Now look at ours, Kang said. The human weapons display was terrifying. Nuclear bombs, biological weapons, chemical agents, kinetic bombardment systems, plasma cannons designed to melt entire city blocks. We don't just make weapons to win wars, Kang explained. We make weapons to completely destroy our enemies. Total war isn't just a strategy for humans. It's the only kind of war we understand. Dr. Park felt sick. The aliens were right to be afraid of us. The aliens don't even understand what fear really is, General Choi said. They think fear is being worried about losing an election or having their art criticized. They've never experienced the kind of terror that shapes a species. Yeji brought up psychological studies. Human children develop fear responses that would be considered mental illness in other species. We're afraid of the dark, of being alone, of being hunted. Because for most of our history, those fears kept us alive. We sleep with weapons under our beds, Kang added. We check locks multiple times before going to sleep. We assume strangers might be dangerous. Other species find this behavior paranoid, but for humans, it's normal survival instinct. There's something else, Yeji said hesitantly. Something that might be the most important difference of all. She pulled up mortality data from across the galaxy. Most species live for thousands of years. Some live for tens of thousands. They have time to think, to plan, to consider the long-term consequences of their actions. Humans live for maybe 100 years if we're lucky, Dr. Park said, which means we don't have time for careful consideration. When we see a threat, we act immediately and decisively. We can't afford to spend decades debating the best response. General Choi nodded. When the Devourers attacked the Alterans, they probably spent months trying to negotiate or find a peaceful solution. By the time they realized violence was necessary, it was too late. But humans see a threat and immediately start planning how to kill it, Kang said. We don't waste time with diplomacy or hoping the problem will go away. Dr. Park looked at all the data surrounding her. So, we're not just different. We're the opposite of every other species in the galaxy. Think of it this way, General Choi said. The galaxy is full of sheep who've never seen a wolf. They've lived in peace for so long that they've forgotten predators exist. But the Devourers are wolves, ancient and hungry. And we're what exactly? General Choi smiled that cold smile. Again. We're the apex predators the wolves never expected to meet. The vault fell silent except for the humming of computers processing humanity's violent history. Outside, in the depths of space, ancient horrors approached the galaxy's edge. But, for the first time in millions of years, they were about to encounter something more dangerous than themselves. Something that had spent its entire existence learning how to kill. The shipyards above Earth had never seen activity like this. Thousands of workers moved in perfect coordination, building machines designed for one purpose: killing. Admiral Dong Su watched from the command center as humanity prepared for war, unlike any they had ever fought. Status report, he called to his staff. The Ghost Battalion is loading onto the Righteous Fury, reported Colonel Tae-jun. All stealth modifications are complete. The ship's new coating absorbs 99.7% of known detection methods. What about weapons? Every human military innovation from the past 400 years, sir. Kinetic bombardment systems, plasma torpedoes, biological warfare pods, and some new toys that Engineer Kang designed specifically for this mission. Admiral Dong Su studied the tactical displays. Earth's response to the Devourer threat was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of building defensive positions or evacuation ships, humanity was constructing the largest offensive fleet in galactic history. Captain Yun Ha approached from the communications station. Sir, the Silent Death is ready for deployment. All crew members have volunteered for extended deep space operations. Extended operations was military code for missions where the crew might not come home. The fact that every position was filled with volunteers told Admiral Dong Su everything he needed to know about human nature. What's our total fleet size? He asked. 800 ships, sir. Not the largest fleet ever assembled, but definitely the most dangerous. Major Juan Park joined them from the Psychological Warfare Division. Admiral, I've finished the analysis of Devourer communication methods. They use fear as their primary weapon, broadcasting images of destruction to break enemy morale before attacking. Counter strategies? We were going to broadcast something back, Juan said with a grin that would have made other species uncomfortable. I've prepared a compilation of human horror movies, war documentaries, and footage from our most brutal conflicts. If they want to play psychological warfare, they pick the wrong species. Admiral Dong-Su nodded approvingly. What about ground forces? Colonel Tae-Jun pulled up personnel reports. Every Special Forces unit on Earth has volunteered. The Enhanced, Marines, the Cyber Infantry, the Void Rangers, even the Experimental Psi Corps. We're not just sending soldiers, sir. We're sending humanity's most effective killers. Equipment status? Every weapon that's ever been declared too inhumane for warfare by the Galactic Convention is loaded and ready. Nerve agents, plasma, bombs, nano-disruptors, and some new inventions that would probably get us banned from civilized space if anyone found out about them. Dr. Mina Park arrived at that moment, carrying data tablets and looking disturbed. Admiral, I've been studying the Devourer biology from the intercepted signals. I think I understand why other species can't fight them effectively. Explain. The Devourers are essentially living ships. They're partially organic, partially mechanical, and they regenerate damage at an incredible rate. Most species try to disable them or capture them for study. And that doesn't work? It's like trying to capture a cancer cell to negotiate with it. The Devourers don't think like us. They don't have culture or art or individual identity. They exist to consume. Admiral, Dong-Su considered this information. So conventional warfare won't work. Conventional galactic warfare won't work, Dr. Park corrected. But human warfare? That might be different. Engineer Kang Su appeared with a team of technicians carrying sealed containers. Admiral, I've got something that should interest you. We've modified our bioweapons to specifically target the organic components of Devourer ships. Bioweapons? Think of them as space-age diseases designed to attack Devourer biology. Other species would never consider using such weapons because they consider biological warfare immoral. But humans don't have that problem, Admiral Dong-Su said. Humans have used biological warfare for thousands of years. We're very good at it. Captain Hyun Lee joined the group, fresh from inspecting the Soul's Pride. Admiral, the ship modifications are complete. We've removed all the safety protocols and non-essential systems. Maximum speed, maximum firepower, maximum aggression. Life. Support? Reduced to bare minimum. The crew knows the risks. Admiral Dong-Su looked around at his officers. Each one represented a different aspect of human military capability, and each one was eager to face an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years. Let me make sure I understand our strategy, he said. We're going to fly directly at creatures the size of moons, using weapons that other species consider war crimes, with crews that volunteered for suicide missions while broadcasting horror, movies to scare them. That's about right, sir, said Colonel Tae-Jun. And our backup plan? More the same, but with bigger explosions. Admiral Dong-Su smiled. I like it. How long until we're ready to launch? 72 hours, sir. Make it 48. Every day we wait, more civilizations die. As the meeting broke up, each officer returned to their preparations. The Ghost Battalion practiced boarding maneuvers designed to infiltrate living ships. The Cyber Infantry tested new viruses designed to corrupt alien technology. The Enhanced Marines loaded ammunition that would be considered excessive force against any normal enemy. In the shipyards, weapons were installed that had never been used in actual combat. Plasma cannons that could melt asteroids. Kinetic bombardment systems that could crack planets. Biological warfare pods that could poison entire star systems. The ships themselves were works of art, if art could be defined as perfectly efficient killing machines. The Righteous Fury was a stealth destroyer designed to appear harmless until it was too late. The Merciless Dawn carried enough firepower to level continents. The Eternal Vengeance was essentially a flying bomb with a crew compartment attached. Each ship's crew had been selected not just for skill, but for the right mental attitude. These weren't peacekeepers or explorers. They were hunters, predators, humans, who understood that sometimes civilization could only be preserved through controlled barbarism. Captain Unha stood on the bridge of the Silent Death, watching her crew prepare for launch. They moved with the calm efficiency of people who had accepted that they might not survive the next few months. But instead of fear, she saw anticipation in their eyes. "Captain," said her weapons officer, "all systems ready. Target acquisition? We've programmed the computers to identify and prioritize devourer ships based on size and threat level. Rules of engagement? Simple, ma'am. If it's not human and it's not running away from the devourers, shoot it." Captain Yun-Ha nodded. Other species had complicated rules about warfare, honor, and acceptable targets. Humans kept it simple. Identify the enemy, kill the enemy, repeat until no enemies remained. Across the fleet, similar conversations were taking place. Crews that had trained for years to fight human enemies were adapting their skills to face cosmic horrors. Engineers who had designed weapons for planetary conflicts were scaling up to galactic warfare. And in the deep archives of each ship, sealed containers held humanity's most terrible weapons. Things that had been invented but never used, stored away because even humans had lines they preferred not to cross. But the devourers had crossed every line that mattered. Now they would learn what happened when they threatened a species that had spent its entire existence perfecting the art of war. The galaxy had called for help. Earth was sending its answer, the apex predators of the universe, armed with 400 years of space-age weapons and 40,000 years of accumulated rage. It was going to be beautiful. The Nexus system had been beautiful once. 5 planets orbiting a yellow star, home to 3 billion Zephyrians who were known throughout the galaxy for their music and poetry. Now it was a nightmare. Admiral Dong Su stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display with cold eyes. Where planets used to orbit, there were only debris fields. Where space stations once facilitated trade between species, there were floating chunks of metal and bone. "Report," he ordered. Lieutenant Jin Young, his tactical officer, highlighted the readings on the main screen. 7 devourer ships in the system, sir. Sizes range from destroyer class to... She paused, checking her instruments. "Sir, the largest one is reading as bigger than Earth's moon. Casualty assessment? All permanent settlements destroyed. We're detecting approximately 2,000 refugee ships fleeing toward the galactic rim. Most are damaged and moving slowly. Captain." Hyun Lee, who had been monitoring communications, spoke up from his station. "Admiral, I'm receiving surrender broadcasts from the Zephyrian Defense Fleet. They're requesting permission to withdraw." "Denied," Admiral Dong Su said immediately. "Signal the refugee ships. Tell them to continue their retreat. We'll handle this." "Sir," Lieutenant Jin Young said carefully, The Zephyrian commander is asking why we're not withdrawing with them. Admiral Dong-Su opened a communication channel to the fleeing alien ships. When the hologram appeared, it showed a creature that looked like a cross between a bird and a jellyfish, its natural colors faded with exhaustion and terror. This is Admiral Dong-Su of the Earth Fleet. Commander, you and your people need to leave this system immediately. Admiral, the alien replied, its voice shaking through the translator, you don't understand. These creatures cannot be fought. They've destroyed civilizations that existed for millions of years. You must retreat while you still can. Commander, I appreciate the warning, but we're not here to retreat. Then what are you here for? Admiral Dong-Su smiled, and something in that expression made the alien step back from its own communication screen. We're here to hunt. The communication channel closed. Across the human fleet, ships that had been running silent suddenly activated their weapon systems. The Ghost Battalion's stealth ships decloaked around the largest devourer, while the righteous Fury began targeting the smaller ones. All ships, Admiral Dong-Su broadcast to his fleet. You are weapons free. Show them what happens when they threaten our galaxy. The first human weapons to fire were the kinetic bombardment systems. Tungsten rods accelerated to near-light speed slammed into the devourer ships with the force of nuclear explosions. The aliens watching from their fleeing ships expected to see the human vessels destroyed in retaliation. Instead, they watched. The devourers react with something that looked suspiciously like confusion. Sir, reported Captain Yun-Ha from the Silent Death. The enemy ships are not following standard retreat protocols. They're actually moving toward us. Confirmed, said Colonel Tae-Jun from the Ghost Battalion. The devourers appear to be curious about us. Admiral Dong-Su understood. For millions of years, the devourers had encountered the same pattern. They would arrive in a system, broadcast terrifying images, and watch civilizations collapse in fear before they even fired a shot. But the humans had responded to their psychological warfare by broadcasting back, and what they had broadcast was worse than anything the devourers could imagine. Major Huan, Admiral Dong-Su called to his psychological warfare specialist. What exactly did you send them? Major Huan Park grinned. Footage from the Siege of Titan where we used civilian bunkers as bait to lure enemy forces into kill zones. Video clips from our horror entertainment industry, and a documentary about human serial killers. How did they respond? They stopped broadcasting their fear images, sir. I think we confused them. The largest devourer ship, the one the size of Earth's moon, suddenly accelerated toward the human fleet. Its surface rippled with organic patterns that pulsed like a heartbeat, and weapons that looked like living tissue began to emerge from its hull. Incoming fire, Lieutenant Jin Young reported. Energy signatures unlike anything in our databases. The Devourer's attack was a wave of pure destruction that would have vaporized any conventional fleet. But human ships weren't built to conventional standards. They scattered like a pack of wolves, each one moving to a predetermined position while maintaining coordinated fire. Target the organic sections, Admiral Dong-Su ordered. Use the bioweapons. Engineer Kang-Su's specially designed weapons launched from hidden ports on the human ships. They looked like normal missiles, but when they impacted the Devourer hull, they didn't explode. Instead, they burrowed into the organic tissue and began to spread like infections. The massive creature's response was immediate and violent. It writhed in what could only be described as agony, its weapons fire becoming erratic as sections of its hull began to dissolve from within. Sir, reported Sergeant Wan-Sik from the Enhanced Marines, requesting permission to board the enemy vessel. Admiral Dong Su blinked. You want to board a ship the size of a moon? Sir, our bioweapons have opened several breaches in the hull. If we can get inside and target the control centers directly, we can take it down from within. Sergeant, that's a suicide mission. Sir, with respect, all our missions are suicide missions. That's what makes us effective. Admiral Dong Su considered this. Any other species would consider boarding a devourer ship to be insane. But insanity was a human specialty. Permission granted. Take the eternal vengeance and ram that thing. Board. Through the breach and cause as much damage as possible. Yes, sir. The watching alien refugees couldn't believe what they were seeing. The humans had not only engaged the devourers in direct combat, they were actually winning. But more disturbing than their success was their methods. The human ships fought like a pack of predators. They didn't try to preserve their own forces or minimize damage. They focused entirely on killing the enemy as efficiently as possible. When one ship was damaged, others would use it as a distraction to get closer to their targets. The Eternal Vengeance, loaded with volunteer crew members and enough explosives to level a city, accelerated directly toward the largest devourer. At the last moment, the crew activated their escape pods while the ship itself slammed into the creature's hull with devastating force. The impact opened a wound in the devourer large enough to fly smaller ships through. Sergeant Wan Sik led his enhanced Marines through that wound in boarding craft that had been specially modified for this mission. Inside the devourer ship, the Marines found themselves in what looked like a living nightmare. The walls pulsed with alien blood. The air was filled with spores that would have been toxic to any other species, and the corridors twisted in ways that defied normal physics. The Marines loved it. This is like that haunted house simulation we trained in, Wansik reported back to the fleet. Except the monsters are real and we get to use live ammunition. The enhanced Marines moved through the Devourer's interior with systematic efficiency. They planted explosives in what looked like nerve centers, used flamethrowers to clear infected areas, and generally caused the kind of damage that would have horrified any civilized species. Meanwhile, the rest of the human fleet continued their assault on the remaining Devourer ships. The bioweapons were spreading faster than expected, causing several of the smaller vessels to simply fall apart as their organic components died. Admiral, reported Captain Hyun Lee, we're receiving communication requests from the surviving refugee ships. Put them through. The same bird jellyfish creature appeared on screen, but this time its expression was different. Instead of terror, there was something that looked like awe mixed with horror. Admiral Dong Su, it said slowly, in 40 million years of galactic history, no species has ever successfully engaged the Devourers in direct combat. Well, Admiral Dong Su replied, you've been doing it wrong. How are you winning? Admiral Dong Su looked at his tactical display. We're human. Ships were systematically dismantling creatures that had terrorized the galaxy for eons. Simple. We're not trying to negotiate with them or understand them or preserve them for study. We're just killing them. The alien was quiet for a long moment. Your species frightens me, Admiral. Good, Admiral Dong Su said. Fear keeps you alive. And right now, we're the only thing standing between you and extinction. The largest Devourer ship was dying. Sergeant Wansik and his Marines had reached what appeared to be its brain and filled it with enough explosives to crack a small asteroid. When they detonated, the creature's death scream was heard across subspace. One by one, the remaining Devourers fell to human weapons. The last one tried to flee, but Captain Yun-Ha's silent death was faster and more ruthless than anything it had ever encountered. As the battle ended, Admiral Dong Su surveyed the aftermath. 7 Devourer ships destroyed. Human casualties. Moderate. Time elapsed. 6 hours. Sir, Lieutenant Jin Young said quietly, we're receiving reports from the refugee ships. They're asking if we need any assistance. Admiral Dong Su almost laughed. Tell them thank you, but we're fine, and suggest they spread the word to any other fleeing civilizations. What word, sir? That Earth has entered the war. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light. Species that had been fleeing in terror for months suddenly heard something impossible. The Devourers could be defeated. But as the details of humanity's methods became known, many aliens wondered if they had traded one nightmare for another. Captain Sung Min stood in the research lab aboard the Merciless Dawn, watching his scientists work with captured Devourer technology. What they were doing would have been considered crimes against nature by most galactic civilizations. The humans called it adaptive warfare. Status report, Sung Min called to Dr. Ji Hai, who was leading the research team. We've successfully reverse-engineered their biological weapon systems, she replied, not looking up from her work. The interesting part is that we can modify them to attack their creators. Explain. Dr. Ji Hai pulled up a holographic display showing Devourer DNA patterns. These creatures share genetic markers across their entire species. If we can create a targeted virus that attacks those markers, we can potentially kill all of them at once. Biological warfare on a galactic scale? Exactly. Other species would never consider such a weapon because it goes against their moral codes. But humans have been using germ warfare for thousands of years. Captain Sung Min nodded approvingly. How long until it's ready? 2 weeks, assuming we can get more samples from active Devourer ships. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were taking place on dozens of human vessels. The humans weren't just fighting the Devourers, they were studying them, learning from them, and turning their own capabilities against them. Colonel A. Ree was having a different kind of problem. Her job was training alien volunteers in human combat techniques, and the results were disturbing everyone involved. I don't understand, said Vox, a crystalline being from the collective who had volunteered to fight alongside humans. Why do we need to target the nursery ships first? Because they're breeding, Colonel A. Ree explained patiently. Every nursery ship we destroy prevents thousands of new Devourers from being born. But the nursery ships don't pose a direct threat. They're filled with young creatures that haven't developed weapons yet. Exactly, which makes them easy targets. Vox's crystalline structure flickered with what humans had learned was extreme distress. Colonel, you're talking about killing children. I'm talking about killing the future enemies who would consume your species if we let them grow up. But surely there must be a way to capture them, study them, perhaps even communicate with them. Colonel A. Ree sighed. This was the fundamental problem with training aliens for war. They still thought like civilians. Vox, let me ask you something. If you had a nest of poisonous snakes in your home, and you knew they would grow up to kill your family, what would you do? I would relocate them to a safe habitat where they couldn't harm anyone. And if there was no safe habitat, if everywhere you put them, they would eventually spread and kill other families? Vox was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. Humans know. We kill the snakes. The training sessions continued, but Colonel A. Ree could see the toll they were taking on the alien volunteers. They were learning human tactics, but they were also learning to think like humans. For species that had lived in peace for millions of years, this was a traumatic transformation. Meanwhile, Captain Sung Min was receiving reports from across the war zone that confirmed his worst fears about human effectiveness. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we're getting disturbing transmissions from the Rigel system." Elaborate. The human strike force eliminated all Devourer presence in the system, but they also... The officer paused, looking uncomfortable. They also destroyed several space stations that had been partially consumed by the Devourers. Casualties. Unknown number of alien survivors who were trapped in those stations. Captain Sung Min considered this. Were the survivors infected with Devourer bioforms? Possibly. The humans reported that they couldn't risk extraction due to contamination. So they made the practical choice. "Sir, some of those survivors had been broadcasting for help for weeks." Captain Sung Min understood the officer's discomfort. Other species would have spent days or weeks trying to rescue those survivors, probably losing ships and personnel in the process. Humans had made a cold calculation. The risk wasn't worth the potential reward. "Note the incident in the log," he ordered. "But remember that our primary mission is to eliminate the Devourer threat. Everything else is secondary." Across the galaxy, human forces were applying the same ruthless logic to every encounter. They didn't try to save alien art or preserve cultural artifacts. They didn't waste time attempting to communicate with Devourer-infected beings. They simply identified threats and eliminated them with maximum efficiency. The results were undeniably effective. In 3 months, human forces had destroyed more Devourer ships than the rest of the galaxy had managed in years of desperate fighting. But their methods were causing almost as much fear as the Devourers themselves. Dr. Ji-Hai's bioweapon was ready ahead of schedule. She stood in the laboratory looking at a container that held enough modified virus to kill every Devourer in the galaxy. "Are we really going to do this?" asked her assistant, a young human named Tae Woo who had joined the mission fresh from university. "Do what? Commit genocide against an entire species?" Dr. Ji-Hai looked at him with the patience of someone explaining basic facts to a child. "Tae-Woo, the Devourers have consumed hundreds of species over millions of years. They've killed trillions of intelligent beings. They don't negotiate, they don't show mercy, and they don't stop. But they're still a form of life. So are viruses. So are cancer cells. That doesn't mean we let them spread." Tae-Woo was quiet for a moment. "What if we're wrong? What if there's another solution? Then other species had millions of years to find it, and they failed. Now it's our turn." The weapon was distributed to human ships across the galaxy. The plan was simple: simultaneous release in multiple star systems, allowing the virus to spread through the Devourer communication networks and infect their entire species within weeks. But first, there was one more target to eliminate. Admiral Dongsu stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the tactical display showing the galactic core. Long-range sensors had detected what appeared to be the Devourer home system. Dozens of massive ships surrounding a cluster of ancient stars. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Jin Young, "we're receiving communication requests from multiple alien governments. Put them through." The main screen filled with representatives from a dozen species. All of them looked terrified, but not of the Devourers. "Admiral Dong-Su," said the Alteran leader, "we've been monitoring your campaign against the Devourers. We must ask you to stop." "Why?" "Your methods are excessive. The destruction you're causing extends far beyond the Devourer threat. We're winning, Admiral Dong Su pointed out. Yes, but at what cost? You've destroyed historical sites that were millions of years old. You've eliminated space habitats that could have been saved. You've shown no regard for preserving anything except human interests. Admiral Dong Su was quiet for a moment, considering his response. Finally, he spoke. Council Leader, how many of your people have died since the Devourers awakened? Billions. How many of your worlds have been consumed? Hundreds. How many of your cultural artifacts and historical sites have been destroyed? Thousands of years of civilization lost forever. And in all that time, how many Devourers did your forces kill? The alien leader looked uncomfortable. We managed to disable several ships and force others to retreat. We've exterminated over 200 Devourer vessels in 3 months. We've developed weapons that can kill their entire species. We've broken an enemy that has terrorized the galaxy for millions of years. Admiral Dong Su leaned forward. Are you really complaining about our methods? The alien council members exchanged glances. Finally, one of them spoke. Admiral, we're not ungrateful, but we're concerned about what happens after the Devourers are gone. Your species has demonstrated a capacity for violence that frightens us. Good, Admiral Dong Su replied. Fear will keep you honest. The communication channel closed. Admiral Dong Su turned to his tactical officer. Lieutenant Jin Young, signal the fleet. We're moving on the Galactic Core. Sir, shouldn't we wait for approval from the Galactic Council? Admiral Dong Su smiled. Jin Young, when did humans start asking permission to hunt? 6 months after Earth's intervention began, the galaxy was free. But as Emperor Wu Jin stood in the newly constructed throne room on the capital world of New Terra, he wondered if freedom was the right word for what they had achieved. The ceremony was attended by representatives from every surviving species in the galaxy. They had come to witness the formal end of the Devourer War and the establishment of the new galactic order. But Wu Jin could see the fear in their eyes as they looked at him. Your Majesty, said Ambassador Min Jae, approaching with the latest reports. The final Devourer stronghold has been eliminated. Dr. Jihai's bioweapon was completely effective. Long-range sensors confirm no Devourer activity anywhere in the galaxy. Casualties? Minimal human losses in the final assault. The enemy was already weakened by the virus when our forces arrived. Emperor Wu Jin nodded. The title felt strange. To him, he had been a general just months ago. But the alien species had insisted on giving humanity's leader a title that reflected their new position in the galactic hierarchy. What about the other matter? Ambassador Min Jae's expression grew uncomfortable. Sir, the Galactic Council has formally requested that humans consider moderating our military presence, meaning they want us to decommission most of our EU fleet and destroy our more advanced weapons. Emperor Wu Jin looked out the window at the space above New Terra, where human warships patrolled in formation. Each ship represented capabilities that other species couldn't match and didn't want to understand, and our response. General Yu Na believes we should maintain full military readiness. Her report indicates that while the Devourers are extinct, there may be other threats beyond the galactic rim. Do you believe that? Ambassador Min Jae was quiet for a moment. Sir, I think General Yu Na is right to be cautious, but I also think she enjoys having other species afraid of us. Emperor Wu Jin smiled. Yuna had been one of his best officers during the war, and she understood better than most that peace was only possible when potential enemies were too frightened to start conflicts. A chime indicated that the formal ceremony was about to begin. Emperor Wu Jin walked to the main hall, where hundreds of alien dignitaries waited to witness the signing of the new galactic constitution. The document was a work of art, really. It established Earth as the dominant military power in the galaxy, while giving other species representation in civilian government. It created a new structure where humans would handle all matters relating to galactic defense, while aliens could focus on the things they were good at: art, philosophy, trade, and scientific research. "Your Majesty," said the Alteran representative as Wu Jin approached the signing table, "we want to express our gratitude for humanity's intervention against the Devourers." "You're welcome," Wu Jin replied simply. "We also want to discuss the adjustment period that many of our species are experiencing." "Adjustment period?" The alien looked uncomfortable. "Your Majesty, many of our people are having difficulty adapting to the new reality. For millions of years, we lived without fear of external threats. Now we know that creatures like the Devourers exist, and that survival requires methods that we find disturbing." Emperor Wu Jin understood. The galaxy had been forced to confront the reality that their peaceful existence was only possible because they had been lucky enough to avoid real predators. Now they knew that safety required vigilance, and vigilance required weapons, and weapons required people willing to use them. "What specific concerns do you have?" "Well, for example, our children are asking questions about violence and warfare that we don't know how to answer. Some of our younger generation are expressing interest in joining human military forces. And that's a problem?" "Your Majesty, we've been a peaceful species for 10 million years. The idea of our children choosing military careers is troubling." Emperor Wu Jin signed the Constitution and handed the stylus to the next representative. "Let me ask you something. Before humans arrived, how many of your children were going to survive the next century?" The alien considered this. "Without human intervention, probably none of them." "And now?" "Now they have a future." "Then perhaps some changes are worth accepting." The ceremony continued, with each species formally acknowledging the new galactic order. It was a peaceful transition, but Wu Jin could sense the underlying tension. The aliens were grateful for their survival, but they were also afraid of their saviors. After the ceremony, General Yuna joined Emperor Wu Jin in his private office. She carried reports from across the galaxy, updates on human forces and alien activities. "Sir, I've been reviewing the integration programs," she said. "Colonel, ARE's training initiatives are showing interesting results." "Elaborate." "We've successfully trained over 10,000 alien volunteers in basic human combat techniques. But the psychological effects are more significant than we expected." "How so?" "The aliens who complete our training programs, they think differently. Afterward, they become more aggressive, more willing to use violence to solve problems. Their own species are starting to view them as outcasts." Emperor Wu Jin considered this. "Are they more effective?" "Absolutely. But they're also no longer really the same species they were before. In a way, we're converting them into something more human." "And the aliens find this disturbing?" "Terrifying would be more accurate." Emperor Wu Jin walked to his window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships patrolled the darkness, ensuring that nothing like the Devourers would ever threaten the galaxy again. But he knew that the aliens looked at those same ships and saw potential threats. General, do you think we made the right choice? Sir? The bioweapon. Complete extinction of the devourer species. We could have tried to capture some for study, maybe found a way to communicate with them. General Yu Na was quiet for a moment. Sir, in my opinion, we did exactly what needed to be done. The Devourers were a threat to all life in the galaxy. Eliminating them completely ensures they can never return. But the aliens think we went too far. The aliens think a lot of things, sir. They think violence is always wrong, that every problem can be solved through negotiation, that preserving enemy life is more important than protecting innocent civilians. Those beliefs nearly got them all killed. Emperor Wu Jin nodded. What's the status of our long-range exploration programs? We've launched deep space missions beyond the galactic rim. Early reports suggest there may be other galaxies with similar threats. Admiral Dong Su is leading a reconnaissance mission to investigate. And if we find more threats? Then we'll do what we always do, sir. We'll hunt them down and kill them. Emperor Wu Jin smiled. It was a cold expression that would have made the alien representatives uncomfortable, but it was honest. Humanity had found its place in the universe. They were the apex predators, the ones who stood guard against the darkness. A message arrived from the outer rim, where human forces were investigating reports of strange signals from beyond the galaxy. The transmission was brief but clear. Something was out there, something that might pose a threat to the peaceful civilizations that humans now protected. General, prepare the fleets for extended operations beyond galactic boundaries. Sir, the aliens are going to be concerned about humans leaving the galaxy. The aliens are always concerned about something. Our job isn't to make them comfortable. Our job is to keep them alive. As General Yu Na left to carry out her orders, Emperor Wu Jin remained at his window, looking out at the stars. The galaxy was safe now, protected by human ships and human weapons and human willingness to do whatever was necessary. The aliens would never love humanity for what they had become, but they would sleep peacefully at night, knowing that somewhere in the darkness, human hunters were prowling the void, ensuring that monsters like the Devourers would never again threaten the light of civilization. In schools across the galaxy, alien children learned about the war that had saved them. They studied human military history and tactics, not because they wanted to become warriors themselves, but because they needed to understand the price of peace. And in the deepest vaults of human ships, sealed away but ready for use, were weapons that could crack planets and viruses, that could extinct species and technologies that civilized minds couldn't comprehend. The galaxy had cried for help, and Earth had responded with its apex hunters. Now those hunters stood eternal guard against the darkness, ensuring that never again would peaceful species face extinction because they lacked the will to fight. It wasn't the ending the aliens had hoped for, but it was the ending that let them have a future. And in the cold mathematics of survival, that was enough.